We will start with module 1, macroeconomics. First we'll see what is the introduction of macroeconomics. So it refers to the study of aggregate covering the entire economy, such as general price, general employment, national income, inflation, and it was first traced by the mercantilist. Here it covers total employment, national income, national output, total investment, total consumption, total savings, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, the general price level, wage level, and cost structure in a particular economy. Now we will move on to the meaning of macroeconomics. So macroeconomics is derived from the Greek word macros, which means large. So here it is the study of large part of the economy, that is we will study here the whole of the economy. Here it studies the economic behavior of the economy as a whole. We will take it as a whole, not as a individual or economic units of the country. Next we will move on to the definitions. Macroeconomics, it deals with total or aggregate level of output, to aggregate level of consumption, aggregate level of investment, aggregate level of employment, and general price level in the economy. There are many of the economists who have given their views on this macroeconomics, like Professor P.A. Samuelson. He has said that the study of behavior of the economy as a whole, it examines the overall level of nations' output, employment, prices, and foreign trade. Then other economists, like they have just denoted about the performance structure, behavior, and decision making of an economy as a whole rather than individual markets. This includes national, regional, and global economies. So here we will consider the whole economies. Like if we want to consider about the job opportunities, employment opportunities, we will not consider individual employment, we will consider the whole economy, how it is performing. The same way, if we want to know about the general price level, we will not consider individual price level, we will consider the whole price level. Investment, how many have been invested, everything will be considered as an whole, not as an individual in this. Boulding has also given his view that macroeconomic theory is that part of economics which studies overall averages and aggregates of the system. It studies the total as well as the total systems of an economy. Then again Shapiro, he has also deals with the functioning of the economy as a whole. Thus by these definitions we will come to know about the economy. Macroeconomics is dealing with the economy as a whole. As we have seen many of the definitions, we will see the nature and scope of macroeconomics. So here the nature and scope of macroeconomics, we may say that it studies the aggregate or averages covering the entire economy, such as total employment, national income, national consumption, the national output, total savings, aggregate supply, aggregate demand, general price level, wage level. Everything will be denoted here, taking it as a considering it as a total. It explains the central theme of economy. It studies the economic activities as a whole, and it is useful to understand functioning of the economy in different situations. Thus in this way, if the solution, it is the solution which is called as the nature of macroeconomics. It can be discussed as it deals with how to generate and how to operate the income through production of goods and services. It deals with how to allocate the human resources that and the natural resources in different economic sectors to increase the level of GDP. Then it provides information about how and what policies regarding production, income, expenditure to be formulated for the growth and development of an economy. It considers the formulation of relevant policies towards foreign trade for the benefits of entire economy. Formulations of policies, that is whatever the rules and regulations which government has been framed, that policies will be considered in this. Then again it deals with how the different variables like output level, price level, and employment level can have a close relationship between one another. The scope of macroeconomics, it studies the areas under macroeconomic, that is the approach which includes wide range of economic variables like national income, aggregate employment, then general price level, aggregate demand, supply, consumption, investment, etc. Then it studies of different types of theories of income, output, employment with its constituents, that is the theory of consumption function, theory of investment function, then again the theory of business cycle, theory of prices, theory of income, theory of output and employment, theory of prices with its constituent theories of inflation, deflation and reflation, then theories of economic dealing with long run growth of income, output, employment as applied to underdeveloped and developing economies. Let's see the components of macroeconomic system. There are four components like household, firms, government and trade. So here household, it comprises of all the factors which are dealt like land, labor, capital, organization. It comprises of consumers, that is whatever is dealt by the consumer side or the entrepreneur side. So next comes as firms. Firms are nothing but the producers. So producers, they produce and supply the final goods to other sectors of the economy. They use factors of production in their firms. Third one will be seeing of government. Government includes investment, the subsidies, fixation of taxation rates, monetary as well as the fiscal policies, trade policies, the rules and regulations which government has been made. That all is comprising of government. Lastly, it is trade. Trade, it is nothing but export of goods and services from the economy or import of goods and services from a particular economy. This can be explained with the help of a diagram. Here in the following diagram, there are totally 5 sectors, that is household, firms, foreign, government and financial sector. Whatever the household, that is the consumers, they are dealt, they will supply it to the firms. The firms produces and they will supply it to the foreigners, that is they will export it to the foreigners, and this foreigners in return, if there is government is involving, they will pay the taxes, okay. As well as in the financial sector, if they are in need of money and all, financial sector will provide them the loan facilities. Government plays an important role for what? For collection of taxes, for framing the rules and regulation, etc. Next is circular flow of income. Here we may say that assuming closed economy, no international trade, only the trade which is done within the political boundaries of a country, the flow of goods and services and income from one sector to the another sector, that is from household to the firms. The physical flows are matched by money flows in the opposite direction, and all the sectors balanced. All the sectors are balanced, that is income of one sector and expenditure of another sector, that can be dealt, and it is shown in the following diagram. There are two sectors here in the following diagram, household and firms. Whatever are the factors of production will be supplied to the firms, that is land, labor, capital and organization. In return, the firms will produce the goods and they will supply to the household. In return, the firms have to pay to the household like wages, rent, then again interest, and whatever has been supplied to the household, it will be in the form of what? It will be in the form of expenditure, or we may say that payment method. So here whatever the factors of production is supplied from household to the firms, it will be in the way of factor payment, and from firms to the household it will be in the form of final goods. And here we may say that income plays an important role in household, plus income plays an important role in firms also. Next we will see about national income, concepts of national income. So here first concept is called as gross domestic product. The total value of all final goods and services in a particular economy which is accounting only for 1 year, those will be calculated, like we may say that consumption expenditure, then gross investment by firms, government expenditure, exports minus imports value, all will be calculated in this gross domestic product. Second one is gross national product. So here it calculates a gross domestic product plus foreign net income. Foreign net income means the income which has been earned from Indians, and that will be calculated, and whatever is income earned from foreigners in our country, that will be deducted in India. So your GNP is equal to GDP plus FA, that is foreign net income. Next is third one is net national product at market prices. It denotes gross national product minus depreciation. So gross national product is nothing but gross domestic product, but the and the foreign income minus the depreciation charges. Depreciation charges is nothing but the replacement charges, okay, or replaced or repair charges, or any like construction charges. Everything denotes in this. Next is national income. So national income is nothing but net national product at market prices minus indirect taxes plus subsidies. So here subsidies, it is nothing but it is a type of government help, like market prices, then undervalue output. Then indirect taxes is nothing but the other taxes which has been included, which is a burden of tax from one person to the another person, that has been that has been deducted, and the subsidies have been included in this. Then we will get it as national income. So it is nothing but in simple net national product at market prices minus indirect taxes, the taxes, the shift of burden of tax from one person to the another person, and adding the subsidies. Next is personal income. So here personal income is nothing but national income plus transfer payments minus you may say that SS payments, that is the payments on which has been received, like insurance, then provident fund, then again undistributed profits, corporate taxes, all if we will minus it, we will get it as personal income. So here national income, at least we know what it is, and transfer payment is nothing but the payment, like we may say that old age pension, scholarships, then again bonuses, gifts, everything will be denoted in this transfer payment. So your national income plus transfer payments minus these all things, that is we may say that undistributed profits, then again insurance, life insurance, provident fund, income earned but not received, that all will be deducted in this personal income. Next is disposable income. Disposable income is nothing but personal income minus direct personal taxes. So here we may say that household have to pay income tax, and this way it has to be deducted to get that is disposable income. So your disposable income is nothing but consumption plus savings. Next is per capita income. Per capita income is nothing but national income divided by total population. So total that is country's income divided by the total population itself is called as per capita income. The individual's income we will get to know. Next is real income or a national income at constant prices. Last one is real income or a national income at constant prices. Here inflation raises the money value of all goods and services, and to show real increase in output, national income has to be deflated with price index. That is, if there is continuous rise in prices of any goods and services, directly they will be effect on the prices of that particular goods and services. So this denotes what? Real income or national income at constant prices. We'll see about the advantages of macroeconomics. Here we may say that it studies the whole economy or large groups. Here we may say that this macroeconomic, it studies the whole economy as a whole. Here we will not take into consideration the individual units, we will take into consideration the whole economy. Next is problems related to the whole economy, like employment, public finance, national income are included in this scope. So if we will relate to the problems like job opportunities or relating to any public finance or income of a country, we will not take into consideration particularly, we will take into consideration as a whole, that is combining all together. Next is macroeconomic provides information relating to national income, total output, total consumption and general price level. Next, it is complex, it is due to the study of large groups. Next is, it is particularly focusing on income analysis, okay, that is the country's income. Next, it studies the problems relating to economy and it's giving importance for the growth of the economy. It is studying the problems of an economy, problems like poverty, education system, or else we may say that illiteracy, everything will be denoted, and this will be just given an for the upliftment, for the development of whole of the economy. Next, we will see about the disadvantages of macroeconomics. So, first one is excessive generalization in economic. It takes a huge data. It takes a huge time. It is like a huge time consuming activity. The next is problem of heterogeneous groups. Then if we will compare it, like if other items are there, those there will be facing a lot of problems. Impractical, it is not practical in nature. The data is not reliable, the data may not be accurate sometime, it may be like false data. Then it ignores the differences of aggregate supply and demand. So sometimes it will ignore what is the total demand and total supply in the particular economy. Next we'll see about the microeconomics. So this micro has been taken from the Greek word micros, which means small. So it is a branch of economic that focuses on market behavior of individual and small impacting firms in making decisions on the allocation of resources, and it studies the pattern of demand and supply as well as the determination of output and price in individual market. So here we may say that micro means small, and microeconomics is that branch of economics which studies a particular unit or decision making unit. It designs individual consumers, producers, individual producers, firm prices of a particular commodity household. In other words, microeconomics is concerned with a small part. Next is, it is a study of allocation of scarce resources, that is the shortages of resources among the ends and the signs of scarcity. It is also a study of problems of a constraint by optimization of allocation within the bonds. Okay, next we'll see about the definition. So here there are many of the economists who have given the definition, like microeconomics is the theory of small of the behavior of consumer, producers and market. Then here we may say that it is an area of the study that seeks to determine how individuals and business makes decision and consequences of these decisions by measuring the impact of the supply and demand on a business, cost and benefit of individual business consumption and production and pricing decision, the effects of competition, etc. These all will be denoted by the definition in microeconomics. Next we will move on to importance of microeconomics. So here first one, it understands the operation of an economy. Say that how an economy works, how a single unit works, everything will be denoted in this. Then it provides tools for economic policies, like what all the government has framing the rules and regulations. So it provides a tool for them. Next is, it examines the condition of economic welfare. It is much focusing on the welfare of a country. Then is efficient utilization of resources, that is fully utilization of resources in a particular economy, useful in international trade. By this itself, concentrating on particular sector, we may say that international trade also plays an important role. Then it is useful in decision making. Here we can consider the individual producer's decision. Next is optimal resources allocation, utilizing the resources to a fullest extent, and prediction for the future, whether they have to produce that particular product or no. If there is more demand for that particular product, they have to produce it. If there is least demand, they have to not produce it. Linear programming, price determination, everything are the importances of microeconomics. Next comes as a disadvantages. It is unrealistic assumption. Whatever some of the economists have been assumed, like it may be like that, it may be utilized for some smaller period of time. Those it has been gone till the highest extent. Also inadequate data, yes, sometimes the data collected by many of the this researchers, it may be like false data. Next is ceteris paribus is not justified. Say that it is not fully dependent on the wants and needs or the taste and fashion of a particular consumer, then it is a difficult study. Yes, because everything should be concentrated, pin to pin should be concentrated, so it is one of the disadvantage. Then non compliances of method. Yes, if one follows one method means another has to follow, but some will not, some will be having many of the objections towards that. Next is qualitative study is difficult. Yes, it will be like difficult in studying about the particular quality. So these are all the disadvantages of microeconomics. Coming back to next is differences between micro and macroeconomics. So first difference, it studies the problems relating to single economic unit. Second, in that first, next it deals with the study of behavior economic variables in equilibrium position. Here it deals with the behavior of economic aggregates, that is total. And here we may say that in microeconomics it is the study of principles, problems, policies relating to optimum allocation of resources. But here we may study the principles, problem, policies concerning for full employment and growth of the resources. So here we may say it is studying the individual behavior, and it is dealing with the equilibrium position among internal market. In macroeconomics, here we will study about the total income and total behavior, aggregate disequilibrium position, etc. Then in microeconomics we may say that it is a study of problems which is related to single unit, and resources will be allocated in a single unit, whereas here we will say that it is denoting towards the full employment, that is the job opportunities in a particular sector is much, we will consider more, and policies which is framed by the government will be followed. Next difference is it studies individual income, and next in this macroeconomic it studies national income. It analyzes demand and supply of a labor, whereas in macroeconomic it analyzes total employment in the economy. Next is in microeconomic it deals with household and firms decision, whereas in macroeconomic it deals with the total decision. In microeconomic it studies individual prices, whereas in macroeconomic it studies overall price level. Then in microeconomics it studies analysis of demand and supply of goods, whereas in macroeconomics will study aggregate, that is total demand and total supply of goods and services. Next we will move on to Indian economy. We'll see the introduction of Indian economy. So here prior many of the people, that is mostly 75% of the people were dependent on agriculture, but now it has been come down to 35% of the people are still dependent on agriculture, and agriculture is the only main source from which we can get the inputs. There are majority of the people who are below the poverty line in our country, and Indian economy is affected by it, and countries which are on the part of the progress, which have their potential development, are called as developing economy, where India is also in a stage of developing economy. Why we are under the developing economy? Because we are trying to utilize the new techniques of production. We are developing our welfare of our country, though we are having many of the merits, but there are many of the demerits also in Indian economy, like 60% of the people are still below the poverty line, and agriculture is the main occupation, and it is called as the backbone of our country. Next we'll see about the Indian economy, as it is the 10th largest economy in the world by nominal GDP and the third large by purchasing power parity. So the country is one of the 20 major economies, a member in developing economies, and here we are also a member of World Trade Organization. So here Indian economy, it is a social science that analyzes production, distribution and consumption of goods and services. It is subdivided into microeconomics and macroeconomics, and it deals with many of the concepts like inflation, employment, industrial production, growth, etc. So again there are three types of economy, like socialistic economy, which is mainly dealing with the underdeveloped country, capitalistic economy, which is only dealing with developed countries, and mixed economy, wherein it is dealing with both the sectors, that is the public sector as well as the private sector, where there is neither where India comes under this mixed economic system. Then again we may say that there are sectors of the economy like primary sector, which is only dealing with the agricultural concept, secondary sector which is dealing with the banking, insurance, okay, everything in that. Then territory sector, which is only dealing with trade and commerce sector. Next we will see the characteristics or the silent features of Indian economy.
Indian economy and characteristics of the same. According to the Planning Commission, underdeveloped country is one which is characterized by coexistence of unutilized and underutilized manpower and unexploited natural resources. Of these underdeveloped economies, countries which show the tendency of high growth rate are called developing economies. Now, a look at characteristics of Indian economy as a developing economy. Low per capita income, occupational pattern, heavy pressure of population, underdeveloped and chronic unemployment, maldistribution of wealth, poor quality of human resource, low level of technology, low level of living, low per capita income. A quick comparison of data for different nations of the world. As per data for the year 2003, per capita income of an Indian was just $530. However, during the same year, per capita income in Switzerland was 75 times, United States of America for 71 times, and that of Germany 48 times more than the per capita income in India. Occupational pattern. One of the basic characteristics of an underdeveloped economy is that it is a primary producing economy. A very high portion of working population is engaged in agriculture and allied primary activities, which contribute a relatively small share to the national income. As per 1999 data, 61% of the working population was engaged in agriculture, but its contribution to the national product was merely 28%. Heavy pressure of population. There has been a substantial net increase in the population of India. Two major factors have contributed to the rapid spurt in population. First, steep fall in death rate, and second, fall in birth rate at a much less proportion in comparison to the death rate. Underdeveloped and chronic unemployment. Population is one of the greatest concerns of India. Over and above, a large number of workforce is added each year to it. To absorb such a large workforce, it would require capital to a very great extent to expand its industrial base. Thus, it is very difficult to provide gainful employment to the entire working population. Besides, with no other alternative means of employment in rural India, disguised unemployment is prevalent to a great extent in Indian villages. Maldistribution of wealth. Maldistribution of wealth means inadequate or faulty distribution of wealth or income among people. Wealth is a person's net worth, which is expressed as wealth equals assets minus liabilities. The word wealth is often confused with income. Wealth consists of those terms of economic value that an individual owns, while income is an inflow of items of economic value. Poor quality of human resource. India is the 7th largest country in the world. Our country is blessed with many natural resources. But all these resources cannot help our country unless they are tapped, handled, and used in a planned way. This can be done only by the citizens of our nation. Man can develop these existing resources only when he is wise, healthy, educated, and properly trained. Thus, the real resources of our country are its people. They are our human resources. The living conditions of the people can be improved by providing enough food, better education and health conditions. A minimum level of education is necessary to acquire skill as also to comprehend social problems. As a result, the expenditure on education, skill formation, research and improvements in health are included in human capital. A quick look at the statistics which indicate a far from satisfactory situation. The Human Development Index is a comparative measure of life expectancy, literacy, education, and standards of living of a country. A quick look at the statistics which indicate a far from satisfactory situation. Low level of technology. In India, the most modern techniques of production exist along with the most primitive techniques in the same industry. However, the majority of the productive units and major part of the output are produced with the help of the primitive techniques. To be in a position to adapt to modern techniques of production, basic minimum level of education among people is a prerequisite. Besides, there are quite a few hurdles in the path to adapt to modern technology in the economy. They are illiteracy, absence of skilled labor force, poverty, which impedes buying of improved seeds, fertilizers and pesticides, which restricts the usage of tractors, harvesters, sowing machines. The last characteristic of Indian economy is low level of living. A quick look at the characteristics of Indian economy once again.